Good morning, guys. Is Bitcoin about to break all the bearish signals out there? I think that is a very fair question to ask ourselves. And today we're going to unpack that. Now, today's big news events, we're talking about the FOMC that recently pointed out to rate cuts. And now we're talking about the GDP figures coming today, and as well as the fact that the SLR bank ratio, the bank leverage ratio, might go and change as well, and how this can fuel more bullish momentum into Bitcoin. Okay, so if that tickles your fancy, hit me a like, hit the subscribe, and then we'll go into the content. And if you're a regular, say hi. Morning Renee, morning Afi, Stamku. Thanks for joining in live. I'm streaming to 3 destinations. Give me a shout out. And if you're new to the channel, introduce yourself. I'd love to get to know you. Okay, let's get into the charts today then. Okay, so a recap from what was said. We said we need to be bullish at the bottom of the range. So as I explained to you guys about this Bitcoin fractal, that the daily was range bound. So let's maybe unpack the Bitcoin fractal first before we look at the recap. The reason we were bearish and the reason I took a heavy short, which is about $10,000 in the red today. I'm still holding my short. The reason I did that is on the basis of this bearish fractal that I'm looking at. Okay, so the similarities are as follows. We've had an insane move in Bitcoin, and then the divergence starts kicking in. So let's bring in the divergence. What I mean by that, you can clearly see divergence starts kicking in. The RSI is doing the opposite of what price is doing. And where we have now is we've had an insane nice rally with Bitcoin again. And yet again, divergence is kicking in. And technical analysis, if nothing else, is just a study of the past, looking at what happens if a certain set of events occurs, and then using the outcome of that to statistically formulate whether that will happen again in the future. There's no guarantees. I'm not saying bear market forever, but it's just a fair assumption that if this is what happened there, we're still in that situation. And the fact that we're testing the sell zone is the reason I'm not just vacating this. I'm just hedging with a long my short to just offset the loss. So my total drawdown is currently sitting about at $900. And remember, guys, I'm only using like 2% of my margin. So I'm not trading heavily leveraged. These are swing positions. Okay, so just keep that in the back of your head. So now that you've got an update of where we were, where we come from, the recap will, I think, can make a little bit more sense. So from trading point, from trade for living point, we wanted to see the midway range at $104,000 for Bitcoin become the rejection. I was at that stage playing off the hidden bearish divergence, which has now been deleted. Okay. But this is now the point where I said to you guys, and then if that does happen, 106 would be a critical support or resistance level for us, because that is in essence the pivot, this thou shall not cross line on the 4-hour that replicates this entire move there as well. So if we cross this 106K level, and probably this is the chart that you knew, or the chart that I shared with that line on it, there we go. If we cross that, we will then go into our supply area. So supply enters the market, gets tested, sells off. Supply enters the market, gets tested, sells off. Each time when we make a low and we want to test it, we don't make a higher high and it fails. So we need to make a higher high. So I'm looking at, from a technical point of view, to see if the market is going to go and give us this higher high on the 4-hour. Okay, so to get to the points for today, I think basically that then let's just mark that line up as well, the higher high on this chart. Okay, so to get to the point where I want to try and make with you guys for today, considering everything that we've told and said, is that I'm looking for some bullish news that could potentially fuel this rally and get us to make that higher high and break this bearish trend. Now, the first thing is that we need to look at today is the final GDP for the second quarter from the US. Now, the forecast is that it's going to be 0.2%. So a weak GDP, consumer spending, would facilitate the Fed cutting rates. Now, the last time round, Jerome Powell said that he was going to cut the rates and that we can expect 2 rate cuts of 0.25% or 250 basis points, depends on how you want to say that, meaning that we will reduce the rates from between 2 and 4.5% to 4.25%, and then do that again subsequently. And you can see that the market is looking at the odds at this stage of this happening in the next meeting, the 30th of July, as saying around 24%. So this is a potential bullish brew. So if the GDP figure does come out weaker than the forecast, so -2% and lower, this will facilitate and probably accelerate the probability of the rate cut happening. So you'll see that this graph will start going much higher, and potentially this will come back down lower. So this is a very pivotal point. This GDP figure is very pivotal, and it's probably one of the bigger things that he was looking at. Okay. Now, I also said that past the GDP, another thing, well, let's end this point. So what would this thing mean for the market? We know that this little chart here, the Fed pivot chart, when the Fed pivots, which is what we're looking for now, change in the federal Fed rate, okay, the federal funds rate, okay. So when that happens, the stock markets tend to rally in despite of the fact that the economy is weak, creating divergence. So we've already got a weaker economy, and now you've got price that does the opposite. So that's typically what happens. So we've already got that. We've got a situation where GDP is weak, gold's pushing all-time highs, everything is close to all-time highs, and if the fund rates gets cut, it's being sold from a public point of view as a really bullish thing, because it brings, it starts to stimulate the economy again and will bring consumer spending back up. And that is potentially why after these Fed pivots, there's typically then only a recession. Now, recession is by definition qualified as 2 negative GDP quarters on, okay, so following on each other. So if we do get the final GDP figure being negative 0.2%, for technical points of view, the market or the US economy could be considered as being in a recession already, which would somewhat change this. Now, I know that there's opposing argument saying that that is not the correct definition about this. And yes, we can unpack and dive into that in greater depth, but I think the general consensus of this chart basically just points to the fact that there will be a proper recession at some stage where everybody will agree, hey, we're in shit. Okay, so simple as that. And that typically follows. So the Fed pivoting is an early signal for that. Okay. Now, another bullish thing, though, so this means that short term, we have to be bullish, because this will then fuel more demand into Bitcoin. So we could see Bitcoin break out of this weekly fractal that I'm sharing with you guys. I'm just going to bring it back real quick. We could see Bitcoin break out of this weekly fractal, but not necessarily break the 104K. You know, that's the hope. Why? Because I want attention to move away from Bitcoin, so that we can look at some of the alts, so that they will have their moment in the sun, because there's not a lot of them at this stage. So alt season has been promised by everybody and never been delivered at this stage. So Bitcoin being bullish but losing momentum is a really good step towards a potential alt season. Okay, and sectors like, you know, deepen smart contract platforms, you know, for the last week, you can see they're slowly but surely turning bullish. So it's an early signal that there might be a turn in the alts coming our way, and a real positive spin on this. So if we can get that relaxation in the funds rate and we get this negative GDP figures, that will add fuel to it. Now, the last thing that I want to share with you guys before we move on is this, the SLR. So at this stage, basically, Powell said to the lawmakers he's expecting to advance the proposal that will tweak the formula calculating the SLR. Now, what is the SLR? Okay, so it's the ratio to which banks need to collateralize their debt. So the amount of money they have to hold on hand for the amount of money that they're injecting into circulation. They create print money, for that matter, for the banks. So if that ratio gets reduced, it means that for every $1 that the bank hypothetically has in its reserve, it can borrow out more money. And the way that that's going to do is going to force the banks to actually go buy treasury bonds. They're going to basically force the bank economy to do the quantitative easing for them. Now, this is still very early, and I will unpack this for you guys further in greater detail at a later stage. But the way that you can think about this is when the Fed prints money, reduces the federal rate, and starts quantitative easing, it's a means to try and stimulate the economy and make the economy do well. The last big quantitative easing, example that we can go and look at is when the COVID crash happened. Okay, so the money printers went brrr, as the images normally say, and that created a really good Bitcoin rally for us. I mean, there's the fractal. We've got the evidence and the historic charts to point to that. So if this is going to be a different way of achieving just that, it will definitely succeed, because if we can, instead of having the Fed print money, allow the banks to leverage more, make more loans on the equity that they have, that will also inject capital into the market and give us a potential another bullish signal that could rally Bitcoin and gold and an. Okay, so that's basically the gist for today. So to look at how we're going to trade this, one thing that I might point out that I'm going to do, one thing that I want to point out that I'm going to do, despite the fact that the last short failed and that I'm currently sitting in the short, I'm looking for price to go and test these previous highs, as you can see there. And if it does that, I will break even myself out of this trade. Now, I'm already committed to losing some money. It's not the end of the world. This is it's a hedge against my HODL bags in the end of the day. And the hope is to, within the next day or so, to see if I can get myself out of my large swing short, which was based on this chart. And as you can see that because my entry wasn't that great to begin with, and I will reposition that short. So the long that I'm in is to offset the loss. So when I close the short, I'm going to close the long as well, because the goal for the long was just to offset the loss, because otherwise I would have been down 10K by now. Okay, that's the only goal there. So offset that, and then at that stage, get myself a new fresh position to hedge all this bullish sentiment and to say, okay, right, if we don't make this higher high, okay, then I'm not, then I don't have to do that. So I'm betting on that. So by the time we get close to that area, I'll be able to offload the short and maybe even have a little bit of profit. And if we don't, then I will reposition myself by taking the short at a higher level, okay, which means my stop will be cheaper, and then closing the original two positions. Okay, so that's the sentiment part of today's stream over. Now, I just quickly want to talk to you guys about this analysis that I did. And the thing about technical analysis, even fractal plays and anything we do, we work with the best information at hand. And the reason we were looking for these 2 points as the potential turning point for maybe a secondary test and then a bullish push to the upper end of the range was based on the fact that obviously the divergence was there. But now as more time goes by, more evidence gets printed, and your way that you're going to be looking at this always changes. That's just the nature of TA. There's no hardened rule when it comes to an analysis. Rules are there for when you take a trade. That's your setup. Invalidation, I'm out. Entry because of the setup, and TP because of the setup. That's where you apply rules. So I'm saying to myself that I'm going to give Bitcoin one last chance to show me whether we are going to be bullish. And I'm going to hedge the fact that it might not do that. And it's based on the fact that I'm going to use this high here with this low to look for hidden bearish divergence, which we do have. The reason I'm supporting this idea is because although this is a very nice pivot, it is part of this wave. And I'm now looking for wave on wave divergence, meaning that divergence. Okay, which could mean that Bitcoin will probably, kind of fail to make the higher high and then still come back down and test this area, this mid-range of the channel, and then have a rally. There has to be some sort of retrace at some stage. Okay. Has to be. There's no guarantee, but that's the idea. So I'm saying to myself, okay, so I'm going to use this and I'm going to do that setup once more, which means it's getting very cheap to find out whether that is going to be the case using those 2 points. But I'm going to wait for this. I want to see if we can push a little bit higher, closer to that entry, and then try and get that short play in the market for myself. Okay. If we break through this, then yes, great. I'm happy because then the alts will be doing well, and alt season might kick in. Okay, and the sector performance might change, which means that I am looking at some coins that I want to talk to you guys about. Okay, so if you want to join the Discord, you want to participate in the Discord, comment, and actually get access to some of my private stuff that I do within the Discord, you're more than welcome to do so. What you need to do is just open your own BloFin account. Links in the video description, and go to Discord, go to the navigation channel, and click on Get Partner Roles, and then click on the Claim Your BloFin role. It's going to give you it's going to open a private ticket between you and me. It's going to give you just a breakdown of all the various benefits that you can do. And it's going to ask you to send me your TradingView ID and your BloFin account ID so that I can verify that. So what will this do? Firstly, it will give you the buddy indicator. Now, let's have a look at the buddy indicator real quick. So the buddy indicator gives you buy zones. Enter there, TP1, TP2, and it's about to hit TP3. The buddy indicator gives you sell zones. Enter there, TP1 didn't quite get hit, and I don't know whether it's going to get there. But what it does is it, in essence, helps you to know what I would be looking for at that stage. Hence, it's the trade buddy indicator. It prints these lines in advance, and it cannot move it once it's printed. So once it's there, guys. So you can have a look at the buddy indicator. You can gain access to this powerful tool that will help level up your trading on all, and works on all time frames. Okay, I'm just switching it to a 15-minute. But if we were looking at Bitcoin on the 4-hour, let's quickly load see what the buddy indicator would have done. You can see that it's saying, hey, we've got an SO2. We're sitting in a situation where the market could potentially turn around, and there is, reason to think upside. They gave you the entry for the that was entry for short for continuation, which market reversed around. But they gave you entry for short 1, 2, and 3 TP quite nicely. So it gives about a 65% success ratio on the setups, which is more than enough if you consider and factor in the risk to reward ratio on the various take profits. You risk very little. When it works, you make a lot. Okay, so powerful tool. Get it with your BloFin account. Okay, guys. Alternative, you can buy this $600. Okay. Links to everything in the video description. Now let's get over to the comments. I think I was going to talk to you guys about something else. What was I going to talk to you guys about? This altcoin. Okay, so having a YouTube channel, sending out videos and making posts on Twitter allows me access to certain parts of the crypto community that generally won't be available to the general retail trader. And this means that I can kind of see what the exchanges are punting, what they're trying to get in, what CoinMarketCap wants to give exposure to, what Binance wants to give exposure, BloFin, Bybit, anything. So projects that they invested in, they obviously incentivize KOLs and talk to them about it. So this is one of those projects. I'm going to bring it to you. It's being incentivized heavily by Binance. Okay, so you can go and read up on it in the Discord under the research room. It recently launched. So I'm going to quickly bring up the chart for you guys. So typically, what happens with these kind of launches is there would be the launch day pump. So you get this crazy candle, gives you this insane wick. And the way that I normally talk to you guys about it is I don't wait for this candle to form, and then put your 50% long-term fib on it, which means this is going to be the take profit that we're going to do. Okay, so I'm looking to TP somewhere there. Now, just full disclaimer, guys, this is not financial advice. I don't know whether the truth, the future. I don't know nothing. I'm just a trader trying to play the odds. So please do your own research. Okay. I'm just showing you how I go about trying to hustle money out of the market. Okay. So there we go. So that would be the area that I'm expecting to take profit on this, because normally that's when the liquidity is trapped. Most of the liquidity is trapped. Okay. And then the second thing that we do is we wait for this thing to quiet down and start getting flatlined. Once it's flatlined, we position ourselves and try and trade towards it. So I'm putting this on your radar. Now, how could you put this on your own radar by yourself? Remember, I'm trying to create a community of self-reliant people. I don't want to be the herder of sheep. Okay. So the way that you do that is I created the trend scope indicator for you. It's a simple indicator, yet again, and it's freely available for now. I'm going to turn this into a paid indicator at some stage, but for now, I've just opened it up so everybody can use it. All right. So you can go and get the indicator there under indicators, load indicators. Where is the button? There you go. Okay. So, and just type in trend scope, and this indicator will appear. And what I want you guys to do is to switch this thing to the short-term outlook. So it will load the trend scope, and it will put the trend scope short-term filter in. Okay, there. And then you'll see that there's not enough candles for this thing to populate anything. So you go to the 1 hour time frame, and you can see that from the 1 hour, only support is visible at the moment. So I'm just going to go to settings, and I just want to put on not this, indicators and financials, the name and the value, so that you can just see what I mean. The support line. So price is still below support. But what I want you to do now is go and right click on the screen to create an alert. And then you say, I want the trend scope indicator to tell me when momentum is crossing up on the trend scope indicator on trend. Okay, and I want it only once on the 15 hour. And I can even say, do I want it to ping in the app or send me an email and just create that. So what will that do? Well, typically, let's go and have a look at SUI. I played SUI in the same way with you guys when it launched. Okay, so we're going to have to go back a lot of candles, but there's the SUI move. Right. So as I said, as it starts, you can see that SUI, as the chart starts formulating, these moving averages start kicking in. It's an easy way to look at the market. Okay. And there's your launch wick, and there's your TP, like we did with SUI. And then exactly, we're just waiting for the market to do this. Find a floor, let the trend, which is green, the momentum, which is green, cross above the trend, which is red. And once we're here in this environment, that's when you want to buy SUI. You don't want to buy SUI there. I don't want to buy SUI there. Yes, considering where price is right now, sitting at $2, this is still a good buy. But in the end of the day, we want to make money on spot. And that's the same play. So I'm giving you a chance to go back in time and consider what happened here to this. The same for SAY. I mean, we looked at SAY. And there was a request from Stefan. I think I don't know if he's here today, yesterday. Can we look at SAY? So let's load SAY real quick, and we can look at it in a similar way. Okay. Launch wick. 50% of this wick. There's your TP. And you're waiting for this to align. So SAY got the signal a little bit later on the daily time frame. But that's why I took this on the 1 hour, because I wanted to try and get in with NEWT a little bit earlier. So now we have to scroll all the way back. A hot tip, if you do this and you want to move into a smaller time frame, and TradingView, it's like a year ago, you use the replay function, bar replay. Move it back to that area, because then it takes away the data. And then if you switch into a 1 hour time frame, it populates the data from there. So it just speeds it up for you. Okay. So now you've got exactly the same data. So you're waiting for the trend and the momentum to switch around. Okay. Once it's above, there's a tighter entry, and then you play the book. The only risk is with the strategy, the smaller the time frames, the more false signals you'll get. So you're going to have to be patient. You want to make sure that all the conditions are there. Okay. Think of it as the Italian flag, almost Italian colors. support, above momentum, above trend. Once that is there, then you get to be patient. And remember, this is spot buys. You don't leverage this because of crazy stuff like this that happens. Those that leveraged in on this, they got wrecked there, and that's it. So there's two examples of the idea that I want to share with you guys around everything. Now I'm going to go over to your comments. Let's quickly see where we're at. Good morning, Mr. Kilian, joining in from Twitter or X. Hi there to you, my friend. Chris, nice to see you here. Matty, good morning, my friend. Hope to see that you're well and your spirit is well and everything is good. Bullish news always excites people, so hopefully that will help. Let's see what else we have. That's about everything, guys. So thanks so much for taking the time. Hope the content was informative. If so, do me a great solid. Share the video with a friend that's looking to enter into crypto. Let's get them into this in a responsible manner. Remember, no financial advice. I'm just laying out the odds and helping you formulate and sift through the noise. Have a lovely day, as always, guys. Bye-bye.